Hello and welcome to another edition of Alternative Interactions. I'm Gary. Pleased to meet you. Today we're going to be going through a bit of Tartaria. So we're going to have a quick look at Tartaria and the amount of area and space of that Tartaria actually covered over the realm. I've touched on it briefly as an exit on the video previously, but today we're actually going to have a look at some images to show you kind of a classic-y type Tartarian building and how far spread they were, and a few examples. It's not going to be a particularly long one, but in the future I do intend to do a technology one from the Tartarian one with the free wireless electricity that was produced and the tech of the time, or potential tech, and how I believe it worked with us and everything else around us. And so that should be an interesting one. And it has been asked already in the chat, and I'll just say that behind me is the Flammarion. It's the Flammarion, and it's a very old wood carving that was in black and white in a book many years ago, and somebody's coloured it and done so. And what we can see is this way the firmament and the stars inside, and oh gosh, here we go, it's all back to front on here. We have a giant sticking his head out looking at the workings of the world. So and the tree of knowledge, or the tree of life, is over my shoulder. So there we go. I'm sure we'll talk about that kind of thing in the future as well. God, that was terrible, wasn't it? Okay, so we're now going to go into a quick slideshow of Tartaria, and it's not going to be a particularly long one, but it's one that I have. I'm going to do, and I have lots and lots of images for the future should you require or want to see more bits and pieces. So here we go. So hopefully you're seeing what I'm seeing, which is 3 slides in one. The top one is Russia. We can see very clearly that what we have is pillared buildings, or squared, like ornate, and we often have rounded domes on top, which was for the power capture. And here we have America, same sort of thing, rounded domes, pillars, big square blocked but ornate buildings, and often lovely big building with water in front and such like. And at the bottom we have Iran. Now, isn't that strange how Iran in the Middle East has got pillars, big building, domes? Very strange indeed. Here we have Singapore, Sweden and Indonesia. Singapore, get my teeth in. And here we have the pillars, large buildings, large block buildings, domes. And in Sweden we have the same, large block buildings, pillars. Indonesia, exactly the same again. We have this kind of tech going on. In India we have the same, big buildings, domes, pillars. In South Africa we have the same kind of architecture everywhere, and even in Thailand, pillars and such like, block buildings. These buildings could be anywhere. Egypt is the same. Egypt, yes, we have exactly the same kind of architecture in Egypt. We have exactly the same kind of in Kenya, Africa. All these buildings exactly the same. And in Brazil, South America, same kind of buildings we see across the globe. And then we have Japan. Look at these. Could be anywhere, couldn't they? But they're not. That's in Japan. This is Taiwan. Very similar to what we see everywhere. And this is Argentina, South America again. Look at the similarities in these two here. Dome, pillars. Dome, pillars. Why would somebody in Taiwan want to build such a building as well as in Argentina if it wasn't the same builders or people? Amazing. Now, I'm not 100% sure where this one is. I think it's France, but I could be wrong. But again, we see the classical Tartarian pillars. Some of this architecture at the front, the fancy stuff, is actually Venetian that's been added on later. But fundamentally, we're seeing a mud flooded, with the steps going up, building of very old, with tech still on it. So this is part of the electrical tech that would have been used back in the day to capture the free energy, as would have this and this. Now, I put this slide in because this is not Tartarian. This is potentially Tartarian, but this is not. And this is Tartarian. This is actually a younger building than this. And this would have been built probably 1700s, 1600s, even 1500s, but these buildings I'm sure were up way before then. But it's also likely that this building here is built on top of a mud flooded Tartarian basement area. So we've gone to Amsterdam now, and this is probably the most un-Amsterdam looking buildings you could get. And what do we have? We have the typical pillars, towers. If you didn't know that was Amsterdam, you could think it was anywhere. Here we have Amsterdam again. Typical. I mean, it almost looks German in style, doesn't it, this particular one, with the way it is. Again, Amsterdam. Now this is very interesting. This is a glass house, a bit like the Crystal Palace in the United Kingdom, and the World Fairs had huge ones of these everywhere, Chicago and such like, which all mysteriously burnt down. But as you can see, this is one sizable big building, and again you have to question how was it built and who built it. Doesn't seem to be many people around, which is another thing that we noticed in the 1800s, a lack of people. This is another Amsterdam, and again this really does not look as such in the Dutch style. We would expect the kind of the round fronted building, and this is all square with the twin towers here. This building could be dropped in anywhere in the world. I'm not exactly sure where this one is, but again we have towers, a dome. It's obviously on the coast, so it just shows you the wide variety in locations that these huge Tartarian type buildings were found. Again, showing the pillars very clearly with statues. Now this is Queensland in Australia. Couldn't really get further away from the UK or Holland if you tried. France. And this is Brisbane, and this kind of styled building with the pillars integral into it, clearly demonstrates again this style of building was worldwide. Again, look at the size of this building. This is Australia again, and we can see a newer property, a newer house that's being built, or a newer shop business, and the quality of this is nothing compared to this. Again, I think this is Australia, but I could be wrong. And we can see steps going up and mud flooded with the fencing that's typical, but we still have the pillars and the domes, and horse and carts and mud roads, which is very interesting. So how did they build this using these? Again, Australia. I think this is Brisbane again, and you can clearly see the pillars and the size and scale of the property. This is probably a later addition because the property is mud flooded. Potentially, it's been added on. As you can see, the top of this one ends and this one ends, and it's the same kind of styling here, but I should imagine they've added this on to give it extra height and potential rather than digging it out, because it's a mud flooded property. This is the Parliament House in Brisbane, Australia again, and look at the size of this with huge domes. This is 1850s, 60s, 70s, something like that. How did they build it? We've also got lots of tech on the top of the buildings. This is a Tehran in Iran. Look, these are clearly the same style of buildings that we see everywhere. Pillars, dome, 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 symmetrical symmetry, ornate front gardens. And this is Hanoi. Again, look, this kind of building, the same kind of domes, the same kind of architecture still. We have the pillars. So the men in rickshaws built this. Saigon. Again, pillars, archway, very Venetian. Mud flooded. We have sort of window tops here that have been cut off as such. Very impressive building. And this is actually in Korea. It was Japan, but it's now Korea, South Korea. And look at the size of this building. Again, we have laid out gardens, formal gardens, pillars, and yet all the housing around it, nothing matches it. So why did they build this style of building when they were building buildings like this in the area generally? This is, I believe, Russia, or Ukraine, Eastern Bloc, and you can clearly see the same kind of styled buildings and the old horse and cart sat there. This is actually a print as such, but it's Calcutta, and we have the archways, which could be French archways in or in Rome. Same kind of styling, dome, the pillars. Yeah, this is Calcutta. The sheer size of these properties, the sheer oh yeah, I get my teeth in a minute. Magnificence of what we're actually observing and seeing. To build such buildings like this would have, in even today's age, would take years and years and years. But we're told we only see horse and carts and individuals, a few individuals. There's no cars, there's no heavy machinery. How did they move such materials to create this? And there we go. Hello again. So it's a very brief overview that you can see the type of buildings, and wherever you live in the world, you will find, wherever you live in the world, you will find buildings like this, without doubt. And certainly the capital cities or the major cities will have such things, and they will also be mud flooded, which means they have a certain age to them, an older age, and often they will have been mud flooded several times. So I hope you found that fascinating and interesting. It's just a brief overview of the size of and range of the same kind of buildings we see around the entire realm. Thank you very much for watching. See you next time. Bye.